let's take a look now. Oh, good. We're good on time. I want to talk to you about the awareness of thoughts. The awareness of thoughts. And, just from what we shared today already, I noticed that, everybody here has an awareness already. So I want to share some interesting things that might make you think a little bit differently. The first thing I want to mention is that it's the most common misperception about meditation. If there's one thing I hear about meditation more than any other, it's that you're trying not to think. There's this misperception that meditation is not thinking. A friend of mine recently said, and she could benefit from meditation. She's like, Kylie, I can't stop my mind long enough to meditate. My mind is just too active, so, I'm not going to be able to do that. So I want to be, and I've heard this. She's not the first, and she won't be the last. And I want to be really explicit with you that meditation. So it's not possible to not think. If you're conscious. If you're in a vegetative state in the hospital, then yes. But as a sentient human being, it's impossible to not think. That's not what we're here for. Our thoughts are like saliva. It just comes up. And it just keeps coming. And the thoughts, they come out of nowhere. Like, God knows where our thoughts come from. We know what's gotten into our mind and what's around in there, but the actual moment that a thought arises in the mind, we don't know where it comes from. If we could control that, we would, right? I don't want to think about him anymore. Well, if you could actually do that, you'd be set, but we can't. What we do have control over is, what do we do with our thoughts once they have arrived? And this is why you meditate. This is why you do your homework. The mind needs to be trained. So one thing we do is we find anchors for our attention, which each of you is describing a very beautiful way that you focused your attention on the actual present moment experience that you were having. That's focusing your mind. We find these anchors, places to focus our mind, and we come back there. There's this idea that, so basically you need to be able to pull back from your thoughts in order to, it's not like you're getting control over them, but you're getting a little bit of, it is like a bit of control over your thoughts. So for instance, when you go to the National Gallery and you're going to see a beautiful Monet and it's huge, and if you're standing 2 inches away from the canvas, like you don't even know what you're looking at. If you take steps back, and then you look at it, you see this beautiful image, right? That's what we're doing with our mind. That's why we meditate. We do it formally, with our body scans, different meditations, and we do it informally when we're washing the dishes or drinking our coffee. We're training our mind. So let's explore mindfulness of thoughts. I'm going to put up a slide. There's 3 things that we look for when we're... All right, can you see that? Oops, that's our poem. All right. And if you can't see that, it's okay. I'll go through it verbally. So the three aspects of our thoughts that we'll look at today, and believe me, there's much more, but these are the three main things that we look at. Number one, what's your state of mind? Like, what's your general mood? Are you agitated or worried or peaceful or angry? What's the general state? Number two, we look at our thoughts as events passing through. Thoughts are not reality. And this is really, really important. And number three, we try to recognize the trends of our thoughts. Like, what are the ones that just keep on coming back? And why is it helpful to know this? So the first one, so we want to observe the state of the whole mind from the outside looking in. What's the mood up there? What's the environment? Are we calm right now? Are we sleepy? Curious? The reason it's a good idea to ask ourselves what's the general mood, aside from just being aware of what's going on with ourselves, is that by asking what's my general mood right now, we're teaching ourselves to be a witness of our experience as opposed to a judge of our experience. And there's a big difference there, right? Because of Velcro, the Velcro for the bad and the Teflon for the good, when we judge ourselves, 9 times out of 10, we're going to judge ourselves badly. It's just what we do. And in, Western culture, we do it on steroids. So you don't have to beat yourself up about what you are observing. This is my mood. Today, I feel scared. Yep. Okay. If you're feeling sleepy before class starts, if you witness it, you're like, oh, yeah, I'm sleepy. Yep. Okay. If you're judging it, oh, God, I'm feeling sleepy, you're adding another layer of negative thoughts onto something that's already a difficult situation, right? So if we can just observe that we're sleepy and not judge ourselves for being sleepy, it's a real pathway to freedom. If the mind knows where it stands, whether it's good or bad, it'll be more relaxed. The next point to share is that the thoughts in our mind are events passing through. They're just things. It's like a glass of water, it's a thought. It's the same thing, right? It's not reality. Well, actually, a glass of water is real, and a thought is even less real than a glass of water. So let's look at that for a minute. I'm going to put up some slides. I'm going to put up 4 statements, okay? And I'll read them as well in case you're not able to see your screen. And I want you, after I read each one, to get a mental image in your mind of what it is, what the statement is, okay? And just get your imagination going. Johnny was on his way to school. He was worried about his math lesson. He was not sure if he could control the class again today. It was not part of a janitor's duties. So what image did you have after the first statement? Anybody? Exactly. Little guy on his way to school. All right. How about after the second one, when he was worried about the math lesson? Test coming up, yeah. Maybe he's a little stressed out. And then what kind of an image did you get after the statement he wasn't sure if he could control the class again today? He's a jokester. Anybody? Go ahead. He's a teacher, yeah. Maybe, yeah. A substitute teacher, yeah. And then what about after the, it's not part of a janitor's duties? That was kind of confusing, right? It's a curveball, right? So, we thought we had a good idea. When we got that first statement, it's like, everything is clear here. A little guy going to school. You can really imagine it. And then, you see the second one and you're like, okay, I can understand that. You get more confidence in the story that's unfolding. And then the third statement, probably without even noticing it, you switch to a kind of a different mode, whether it's a kid who's a bit of a jokester or a teacher, but then, we're like, oh, now I know the real story, right? And then the last statement comes along and you're trying to piece it together, right? You're like, well, wait a minute. It's okay. So it's not the kid, it's an adult, but what is he doing teaching? Right. There's not even a story here, okay? This is some statements that somebody put on a slide for us to use so we could watch how we're just sitting here trying to make sense of something that doesn't even exist. There's not even a kid in this case. There's not one in my house, right? But the mind wants to make sense of the world. So it immediately starts to create a story in here. But as you just observed, it's creative writing, basically. And it's going to pull material from whatever baggage that we're carrying, right? Whatever our particular life experience is. My child was walking to school where I used to walk to school, right? So this is just to say that this is really normal, right? And it's often really helpful, right? Because we have to make sense of life. But the problem starts when we believe in our thoughts as if it's reality, as if it's the truth. And this is the road to suffering. The Dalai Lama is really famous for saying, not sure. That's one of his classic answers. So you travel halfway around the world to meet this oracle, and he's like, not sure. But maybe, in fact, it's great wisdom, right? Like we just learned from this exercise, like we can't be sure, right? So what can we be sure of? When it comes to thoughts, one thing we can absolutely be sure of is that the mind secretes thoughts like the mouth secretes saliva. It's the way the mind works. They'll just keep coming. But the thoughts are not real. Sometimes it's a representation of something that really did happen. But in general, it's just a wisp of energy. It's a story that's passing through our mind. They're unreliable stories oftentimes. They're subject to, our moods, the weather. So we have to learn how to hold our thoughts lightly. We have to hold them lightly. raise your hand if you have ever sent a text or email to someone and didn't get a response. You send out a communique and there's crickets, right? Raise your hand if you ever, when that happened, got worried or angry or hurt. Yeah. Like, why are they ignoring me? Or are they mad at me? Now raise your hand if you ever then, like the next day, got a text back and saying, oh, I didn't have my phone on, or oh, the battery had died, or whatever, or we were out of town. Right? Yeah. And so we get caught up. We get the story, and the Velcro is there. The Velcro for bad is there. So we make up a story. Oh, she's mad at me, whatever. And then we attach to that idea like glue, when in fact it's not, it may not even be true. So it's not that we need to not think. It's not that we need to get rid of our thoughts. Like they're here for us. They let us live and be human. We just need to take a step back and see them for what they are. They're just these events that pass through. And we're not sure. We're never really sure. The last aspect of thoughts I want to share with you is understanding the trends of our thoughts. And this is really important, and it's something you develop. I am quite certain the more mindful you are. In fact, I'm completely confident that the more mindful you are and the more meditation you do, you become aware of the trends of your thoughts. If you're sitting there and you're focusing on your breath and you get carried away and then you're like, oh Lord, what? The first thing you ask yourself is, what was I thinking about? Then you make a note of it and then you let it go. You focus on your breath, you focus on your body. Before you know it, you're like lost thinking about something else. Oh, wait. Oh, I was thinking about that again. Just make a note of it and let it go. The repetitive thoughts that we have are usually just because of the survival instinct. We're going to be worrying because that's a way to prepare for the future, or we're going to be regretting because that's a way to maybe mend things, also a way to take care of the future. Well, if I can somehow sort that out, it'll never happen again, maybe. The problem is, though, that repetitive thoughts will physically influence the body. Right? The body is reacting all day as your mind is repeating thoughts, whether they're positive thoughts or negative thoughts. Think of your facial muscles, right? If you're worried about something. When you're worried, you can't help but just make the lines, your face. And that's just your face. Like, it's actually happening in your whole body when you're focusing on worrisome thoughts. It's really embodied in you. We don't notice this, but it's actually embodied in your cells. Whereas if you are smiling and laughing at something, that too, you can feel it in your face, and you can feel it also in your body. You can feel your shoulders relaxing. So these thoughts actually have great bearing on how well we are, right? The thoughts are kind of dragging us around all day, inside and out. I like to think of repetitive thoughts, like if I had a friend who was saying things, whatever was in my head, if she was sitting there saying these things aloud to me, Like, imagine if you had to hear that out loud. Like, you'd be like, okay, I think I got it already. It's enough, right? You told me that already, like 12 times. My mother-in-law actually does this because she's 86 and her filter is gone, almost gone, and it wasn't strong to begin with. She was a firecracker. And it's amazing. She is a walking example of what our minds are doing all day long. And the rate of repetition of what she says is high. It's high. Her filter is not there, but we love her and we're very patient with her. And this is what we need to be patient like that to ourselves. We need to see these repetitive thoughts, which you can do when you meditate or when you're mindful. We need to identify them. Because seeing the thoughts, naming them, it helps them dissolve a little bit. And when the repetitive thoughts, when they dissolve, they lose their grip on you a little bit. You get space. You get space to be a little bit more creative. You have more room to make decisions. When you have space, you can take care of yourself better. You can relax. Does any of that make sense?